Hi, this is Evrim Tan. I'm a researcher from Leuven Public Governance Institute, and today I'm going to present my research for the Data for Policy 2024 conference. My research focuses on a meta-analysis of the researchers that they're investigating the relationship between citizen trust and the use of algorithms and AI by the public sector organizations. So first, let's start with why this is a topic of interest and we need more information about that. First of all, from a more policy angle, we have encountered recently more and more cases that algorithms that they play a larger role in the policy design and the public service processes and some scandals that we have seen in the United States, in the Netherlands, and the UK, where the AI and algorithms they were used to detect fraud, to predict crime recidivism, or to manage the child welfare, the benefits to the citizens. They've been found faulty and having mistakes in managing their purposes, and in overall they've been found as possibly the making significant harms for humans, that they need to receive public services, or they were caused for biased treatments of the humans by the result recommendations of these algorithms. So, in a nutshell, algorithmic decision making can do significant harm in humans if they are not checked or treated well. And similarly, public opinion surveys they suggest that the people they don't trust computer algorithms to take decisions about them. For example, a study among the UK adults has been found that more than half of the respondents that they have no faith in an organization to use algorithms when making judgments about them. So clearly, this is a topic of interest for the public sector scholars, and we have seen more and more research that they are focusing on understanding about what determines the citizens' trust in algorithmic governance. And in that sense, the research, the literature gives us a complex picture. So there are some studies that they are pointing out the importance of transparency measures and the explainability of AI as a ways of generating trust in algorithmic governance. Similarly, there are some research that they're focusing on the accountability mechanisms and regulatory measures for algorithmic governance. Some research that they are focusing on the design dimensions, such as suggesting ethics by design and including certain public value dimensions in the design phase for the use of the AI. The role of the humans as an overseeing the decision-making processes made by algorithms and keeping them in the loop, and involving them in the audit processes. They were suggested or found as influential on the trust context. And furthermore, quite a long list of mediating, moderating, or confounding effects of various factors that have been reported in studies, such as the trustworthiness of the decision maker or organization that they're applying the algorithm can make an overall impact on citizens' trust. The cognitive processes of the users concerning fairness, accountability, transparency, and explainability has been reported relevant. Application area, for example, if an area has a high risk or low risk implications when an automated decision-making systems or an algorithmic decision-making system has been used, or high discretion or low discretion decisions of the bureaucrats that they rely or they can contest the recommendation they were done by the algorithms have been reported to be relevant. Also, from more user or the citizens dimensions, factors such as familiarity with the application domain or various socio-demographic factors such as age, gender, education, income have been reported in different contexts as significantly affecting the trust relationships between citizens and the algorithmic governance. And finally, various types of personal characteristics such as perceived risks, benefits, privacy concerns, or AI knowledge has been found relevant for explaining these relationships. But in overall, that's what we have from the literature is not a clear understanding whether policy measures addressing to build trust in algorithmic governance they work or not, and we don't know what possible the contextual or personal level or socio-demographic characteristics of the respondents they play a role in this relationship. So this is the is going to be the focus of the meta-analysis and the meta-regression that I'm going to conduct in this research. But before going to that, let's talk a bit more about the theoretical framework about how trust has been is clustered and studies in this research. So in this research, I followed a framework which is first suggested by Zucker in 1985, and then it was adjusted to the AI and algorithmic decision-making context by Bodo and Jensen in 2022 in the paper. So I adjusted some of this, the both of this research in my interpretation of how we can associate different policy measures for building trust, and accordingly, all of these measures they were categorized under three pillars of trust. So, what are these three pillars? So, in these original works, they suggest that trust has been influenced by the measures of familiarity, control, and insurance. And the way that I implemented these elements to this research is as follows. So, familiarity has been defined as a shared and stable set of background knowledge and expectations that citizens and the public officials have with the algorithmic systems in use. Control is the level of influence that citizens have over the algorithmic processes directly or through a custodian organization. And insurance is the extent to which individuals are protected against negative outcomes or consequences of algorithmic decisions. And if you translate these definitions in a policy process context, it will look something like this. So all the familiarity related policy measures they fall under the stage of ex ante precautions. Ex ante in the sense that before the algorithm itself has been implemented and focusing more on the design phases. For example, measures about the transparency of the algorithm, or how the algorithm makes the decisions, or the explainability of this algorithm, accessibility of these design processes by the citizens, ethics by design, or whether the AI has certain anthropomorphism characteristics in place. So all these dimensions, all different studies that they're pointing about policy measures focusing in one of these dimensions, they were categorized as part of the familiarity policy measures. The control category focuses on the interim level. So when the algorithms or the algorithmic decision makings that there are the use in public services, and citizens they can interact with it. So here policy measures that they are mostly focusing on regulating the data sharing, so whether you need to share certain data to get a further services, or involvement of the humans in the process of the public services, the responsiveness of all process to the user input, and using additional technologies that give an enhanced control to students, such as the blockchain. All these type of policy measures they were categorized under the control category. And finally, insurance category falls to the ex post policy measures, mostly that they are focusing on, so if something goes wrong, so what are the rules, regulations that they're at place that they're going to ensure the rights of the citizens. So Policy measures such as appeal plausibility, legal insurance, or the use of regulatory sandboxes to test these possible impacts, all of these measures that they're coming from studies, they were registered, coded as part of the insurance policy measures. So let's talk a bit on the methodology. As I mentioned before, the research conducts a meta-analysis of factors affecting citizens' trust in algorithmic governance. So here the dependent variable is a trust variable, but the trust in itself can be measured differently. So I categorize in different research the trust under two broad categories. One of them is attitudinal trust, which basically relies on the measures of whether citizens they perceive trustful if a certain AI or algorithm has been used in an area. So it's a perception base, and the behavioral trust, it is more about the action required by the responses, and the interpretation of willingness to take the action or not has been registered as part of the behavioral trust. And independent variables for this research, the main independent variables are the policy measures, which are just the mentioned you. So they are the familiarity, the controlled, and the insurance policy measures. And also other moderators are selected for the socio-demographic factors. That these are multiple different type of factors. They were mentioned in various studies, and also personal traits, which are referring to the personal the characteristics of the respondents, such as their perceived the benefits of the technology or technology knowledge, their privacy concerns, etc. And in overall, 4 hypotheses they were formulated to be tested. The first hypothesis is that policy measures affect the citizens' trust in algorithmic governance. The second hypothesis is that the personal traits moderate the relationship between policy measures and citizen trust. Third hypothesis is that socio-demographic factors moderate the relationship between policy measures and citizen trust. And fourth, contextual conditions and measurement methods can mediate the citizens' trust in algorithmic governance. So the study has started with a systematic literature review, and for that the focus was only for the peer-reviewed articles. So the research has started with a broader search for articles where trust and algorithm or artificial intelligence or AI has been mentioned, and then by implementing several exclusion and selection criteria, finally 16 research has been selected for the meta-analysis. So here the focus of the research has been on whether these researchers they are using a regression analysis or any similar statistical methods that they can help us to calculate the effect sizes, whether that they're focusing on the public sector, and whether that they are trying to measure the impact on the citizen trust on the use of algorithms by the public sector organization. So by keeping this overall, the criteria, eventually we had 16 relevant studies. So this is how the description of the data it looks like. In overall, we had 221 individual effect sizes they were identified from the 16 studies, and so this is and then also as a descriptive the view of it. Most of these studies they come from the Western in the countries, but when we look to the country level of the dispersion of the studies, we see quite a variety. Similarly, we see quite a variety in terms of the type of research has been conducted. So it's based on surveys or experiments. The public sector area also looks quite varied. So there are the studies that they're focusing more on the domains of the central government, or there are studies that they're focusing more on the domain of the local services. And also the type of AI or the algorithms that they are tested also different. We see several studies that they are focusing on the automated decision-making systems, but there are also some studies that they're focusing on the impact of the chatbots or predictive AI. And there are some studies they just don't specify and the AI application, but they describe as the AI as a general tool of application. So let's jump into our findings from the meta-analysis. So first of all, we use a random effects model because we incorporate real-world data that they are likely to have a variable population in the parameters. And so in order to be able to generalize our findings to a broader population, the unconditional inferences stipulated by random effects models are needed. And also to have a comparable effect size, we have transformed all the effect sizes to the Fisher's Z. So that's how the effect sizes are measured. So in the meta-analysis, it allows us to identify the population effect size, which shows the impact of the certain variable, its significance, and it's 95% in the confidence interval, and the heterogeneity of effect sizes overall using a chi-square to identify whether there is a significant variation among the identified effect sizes. So accordingly, there are 9 variables they were checked control separately in terms of their impact on the trust variable. So both trust variables first, including behavioral and attitudinal trust there. What we have found that the all policy measures, so the control, familiarity, and insurance variables, they are all significantly influential on the variances of the trust variables. So in that sense, it seems us to be supporting our first hypothesis that the policy measures are influential. Furthermore, when we check the impact of the personal traits or the sociodemographic variables, we find that their influence is largely limited. Only except for the perceived benefit, which has been found statistically significant in explaining the variances in the effect sizes of the dependent variable, the age variable has been found slightly significant. But as a further test and differentiating whether these factors that they have a different influences if the trust is measured as a behavioral trust or the attitudinal trust, we found that age is only relevant for the behavioral trust, which makes sense as the elderly, the populations, they find it maybe as a less trustworthy to use the AI and algorithmic tools if they need to engage with it. So that's sort of the interpretation that we can make it. But for the rest, the 4 variables, so the 3 policy measure variables plus the perceived benefit variable has been found significant for both type of trust factors. Secondly, we conducted a meta regression, and here in the model specification, we followed a clustered robust variance estimator. So this is, as I recommended, is one of the most suitable as a model, meta regression models that can deal with issues with non-independence assumptions of the studies and cluster specific heteroskedasticity. However, before running CRVE, we also did some bootstrapping and to minimize the impact of potential type 1 errors. So this is recommended if the total number of the studies it is less than 30. So since in our dataset we have 16 studies, this has been the preferred. So what does the results suggest is that, again, policy measures, they have been found significant. So in that sense, we can reject the null hypothesis, and we can we can confirm that if there are different contextual factors that they are tested, the policy measures, they still make an impact on the citizens' trust. Furthermore, in the meta regressions, as I was mentioning about the contextual factors, 4 specific factors has been included in the model. The first factor was looking for the decision-making context and whether a decision has as an impact if it's closer to citizens, so it is closer to the local services, or whether it is made or decided mostly on the central government or the upper tiers of the government. So that variable was a discretion variable. Secondly, we checked that whether there are certain data protection laws that are at place in the country of studies. It makes a difference on the trust choices of the citizens. So here we looked for the countries that they apply GDPR rules or GDPR compliant rules, and the countries that they don't have such regulations that they protect the privacy rights of the individuals. So these were more about context-specific variables, and then we picked 2 the methodology-specific variables to check the potential confounding, the impacts. One of them was about the AI specification, so whether during the survey or the questionnaire, AI has been given as a generic AI, like it's not specifying a particular area of application, or a particular type of AI has been mentioned, such as chatbot or predictive analytics, etc. And finally, we checked out whether a study is using a survey or experiment. Experiments are regarded mostly as a more trustworthy in the social sciences and make an impact on the relationship between the policy measures and the dependent variable of the trust. None of this potential moderating confounding, the variables they have found significant in the relationship. So in that sense, our understanding is, and the model has a high significant F value, result of the F test. So in that sense, we can more securely suggest that, okay, policy measures influence the citizens' trust regardless the contextual factors. We also checked for potential publication bias, and although the funnel plot and the Eggers test after that, they suggested there might be reasons of suspecting for publication bias. Also, the studies that they are suggesting the applicability of this test for the social sciences has been largely critical about the applications of this in the methods, and also some further tests they have been conducted, such as using the trim and fill methods. So, for example, if you have further studies that can parameterize any difference between the average effect sizes between published and unpublished literature, would it have any impact on the results? And both of them, they found still significant for the results, and also the visual check suggests that the differences between the studies that they are mostly about how the measurement design has been conducted in studies, because we do not see much variety on the x-axis here on the z, which are measuring the effect sizes, but it's mostly on the differences between the standard errors that they are reported by the studies. So let's discuss about the findings. First of all policy measure types, they've been found significantly influencing the variation in dependent variable of trust. And meta-regression findings confirm the significant influence of policy measures on citizens' trust. So in that sense, we can reject the null hypothesis there. However, we cannot reject the rest of the null hypothesis that or we can only partially reject that sociodemographic the characteristics, personal traits, or the contextual factors, they play a significant role. So this is of course except for the perceived benefits, the factor which has been found relevant, significant to explaining the citizen trust in all types of trust. And as mentioned there in the publication bias, although the research has the funnel plots and the Eggers test, they suggest there are potential reasons to suspect publication bias there. Further tests, they undermine the relevances of this the publication bias. So we can, with a certain caution, we can trust the robustness of the findings. Finally, what are the policy implications of it? Well, first of all, we can say that the policy measures, whether that they're focusing on ex ante, interim, or ex post processes, they are all find relevant and important to build citizen trust. So, in the sense, public sectors they need to emphasize and implement these trust building policy measures in the use of algorithmic governance. Secondly, insurance factors has been found the most influential the policy measure in building citizens' trust. And when we interpret this with the importance of the perceived benefits on explaining citizens' trust, suggesting that even without any policy measures in place, the citizens, if they perceive the use of AI algorithm in a certain policy area as a beneficial, they will continue on using that. So how we can relate these two findings, the impact of the perceived benefit and also the importance of the insurance on building citizen trust, is that approaches suggest that they are emphasizing self-governance or laissez-faire approaches, that citizens, if they don't trust, they are not going to use AI in the public sector, in public services, has been found not reliable, because if citizens they get certain benefits as a result of this interaction, even they don't trust, they will continue on using these tools. In that sense, it's warrants for caution for public sector, the organizations, that they need to implement these trust building measures, and most importantly, regulating algorithmic governance there, and not rely on whether citizens are using the services or not as a measure of implementing trust enhancing policy measures or not. Finally, some recommendations for future research could be about studying the longitudinal impact of trust breaches on this, the relationships. For example, whether the perceived benefits of it as an algorithm or AI has been found still relevant on trusting the use of it, if there are some trust breaches, certain problems or scandals has been reported there. And also it would be interesting to assess the impact of policy measures over time. Thank you very much for listening.